Top 20 matchup from Rice-Eccles. First meeting between these two teams since 1973 and co-favorites to win the Big 12 coming into this game. After Texas Tech scored a touchdown on their first drive, turned into a turnover fest for both teams. 5 combined giveaways to be exact in the first half alone. 2 lost fumbles and a pick for Utah. 2 interceptions for Texas Tech. Nobody able to capitalize offensively, in that under of 29.5 first half cashed. Except for final ticks of the first half. Kicker Dylan Curtis, who had missed 2 attempts from 45 yards out last week. Utes down 10-3 at the break. First points allowed in the first half of the season for the Red Raiders had outscored opponents 133-0. Then early third, Baron Morton scrambling here, and boy, took a hit as he slid. The gain of 10 yards, but more importantly, the play would be reviewed for targeting. After the review, no targeting, but Morton, with an apparent head injury, left the game, would not return. Going to the fourth here. Devin Dampier handing it off to Wayshawn Parker. 10-point game is a 3-point game. Third rushing TD in the first 4 games of the season for the back, but in comes backup Will Hammond. Big fourth quarter ensuing. Texas Tech drive. Terrence Carter Jr. Double-digit lead for the Red Raiders. Next Red Raider drive, 1st and 10 from the Utah 24, handing it off to Cameron Dickey. Gets through that scrum, 24 yards to the score, and the Red Raiders open it up after that. Worth another look. 2 minutes left in the game. Tech with the ball again. It's Hammond again to Reggie Virgil for a 21-yard touchdown as Texas Tech wins this one at the end quite comfortably, 34-10. It's their first win in a ranked matchup since 2008. And they started season 4-0 or better for the first time since 2013. The final stat line for the backup, Will Hammond, 13 of 16 for 169 and 2 touchdowns off the bench. Devin Dampier, who had came into this game without throwing an interception, ends his day with 2 picks in the loss. Hey there, folks. I'm Tommy Tran with Shehan, Jeyarajah, and Bud Elliott to talk about this game that just went final from Utah. Bud, I'm going to give you first word. What stood out to you? What started as a low-scoring game? The box score would say 34-10, but this was a dogfight, especially in that first half.
Tommy, I think it was that Texas Tech defense. We know Utah's receivers aren't great. They have a strong run game. They have to scheme guys open. They create a lot of free runners in your secondary. They create busted coverages. Until today, I mean, really, Texas Tech did a great job of playing disciplined defense. They communicated very well in the back end. I mean, how many guys were really wide open? Maybe one, and the pass was dropped. But ultimately, I thought Tech's discipline on the back end really helped them out.
Shehan, what stood out to you?
Yeah, I think that the way that they competed in the trenches, it was such a huge opportunity for Texas Tech to come into this game and have an opportunity to go against one of the best offensive lines in all of college football. And I thought that they did a tremendous job of coming in and playing, like Bud said, disciplined football. They, in my opinion, won that matchup, which was not necessarily something that I expected, with 2 potential first-round offensive tackles on the Utah side of the ball. And also, I mean, you would be remiss not to mention the quarterback, Will Hammond, coming off the bench, playing great football, going down the field. And I thought in this game, especially in the third quarter, this game was going to be won or lost on which team would be able to put up some explosive plays. Ultimately, that team was Texas Tech.
Will Hammond, 13 of 16 for 169 and 2 scores. This after Baron Morton went down in the third quarter when the game was still well in hand. You have a little bit of a background in terms of Will Hammond here. A lot of people out in Lubbock certainly know his story, but what more do we need to know?
Yeah, well, Will Hammond is somebody that this staff has been incredibly excited about for a long time. He's somebody who came in from Hutto, Texas, just north of Austin, played big-time high school football, and he put up crazy numbers. There was a famous game where he actually threw 10 touchdowns in a game that Hutto ended up losing. Well, this is a different type of defense that he's going to be playing with, but when you looked at Texas Tech's transfer class, one thing that they didn't really do was bring in somebody else to play quarterback. Of course, they have a lot of faith in Baron Morton, the starting quarterback, but they felt like Will Hammond is potentially the future at this position. Even during the recruiting process, they felt like he was a player who was very undervalued, and he comes in a huge spot and manages to deliver.
Baron Morton was dealing with a head injury, which he left the game, and again, Will Hammond comes in But if I give you the other side, we saw the stat comparison for Devin Dampier, which coming into this game, there was like dark horse and value Heisman chatter with him. Boy, it didn't really turn out for him today.
No, it didn't. I thought he was somewhat effective with his legs, but ultimately he wasn't delivering accurate balls to allow for run after the catch. I mean, Utah had one explosive play on the day. They didn't have a single rush that went for double digits. They had one pass play that was more than 12 yards. If you told Texas Tech that before the game, they're taking that all day. Dampier is not a guy who's like an NFL-type passer. If you get him behind the chains by winning first down, by limiting those yards after the catch, as that Texas Tech defense did, he's just not going to operate from the pocket very well. And all that eye candy that Utah wants to do in this Jason Beck offense, which I'm still pretty high on, the defense just can kind of just disregard all that motion and all that window dressing. So Texas Tech did a great job of keeping him behind the chains, making him actually play quarterback from the pocket, and he wasn't good enough to do it today.
There's going to be a lot of things that Coach McGuire can point to and said that they did well. One thing they did not do well, 14 penalties for 122 yards, but they were able to absorb that, come away with a victory. If we look big picture, this was a matchup, a heavyweight one in terms of the two co-favorites to win the Big 12. Texas Tech continues that trend here. There are some other players, Bud, that are going to be involved in terms of what we're looking at with the odds right now. But just give me, after this game, with what TCU and SMU went through as well, just sort of the macro Big 12 outlook.
Sure. I think, look, Tech having that win over Utah doesn't lock them into the Big 12 championship game because the Big 12 is kind of a coin flip every week in some cases. But I think they're the overwhelming favorite to at least make the Big 12 championship game now. I've liked what I've seen out of TCU. They have some real weapons. The offensive line looks to be pretty good. Assuming Josh Hoover, who got banged up on that last play of the game today, is okay. I think TCU is very live. I also wouldn't count out Utah. Like, there's nothing that says they can't get better. It is the first year under this offense for this team.
Shehan, what are you thinking of here in terms of the Big 12?
Yeah, I think that this was a huge game for Texas Tech because of the opportunity it presents. When you look right now at the state of the Big 12, like Texas Tech, one of the reasons they took this swing is because of the schedule that they had, is because they only really play 2 or 3 games against high-quality opponents. They play that game, of course, against Utah this week. They play at Arizona State. They play BYU at home. But if you can take care of business, they should be favored by 5+ points in almost every one of their remaining games.
And Shehan, also, if they do make the Big 12 championship game, their schedule in November is a cakewalk compared to what it was in September. Well, not September, but October certainly. They should be really fresh entering. They get Kansas State, which looks like a mess, UCF, which is in total rebuild mode, and West Virginia, which doesn't have very much depth at all. Like, that's a couple weeks to get right and get healthy and get yourself to the playoff.
Still a lot of football to be played, but boy, spring ball, fall camp, all this talk around Texas Tech, billion-dollar booster, all this NIL guys, and so far it has paid off for the Red Raiders with a big-time matchup against Utah in conference. But Shehan, certainly appreciate it. Again, when we talk about how condensed this Big 12 can certainly be, TCU taking care of business, second betting favorite at 5-1, Baylor right there at 6-1, Utah dropping back for the moment. I saw 15-1, perhaps some buyback on Kyle Whittingham and his guys, the Utes, currently with Kansas at 12-1.